9 years working IT in Japan, and I have never leeted my way to any project or any code. Okay? So before you start leeting your life away for 1 year thinking that you're going to get that next FANG sweet as free 10Ds Tesla stock job, watch this video. I might save you a whole year. I might save you a lot of time. And I'll give you some ideas on might be better ways to do this, okay? But not all, but 90% of you out there, 95% of you out there, this is for you. But for the, less than 10%, 5% of you out there who want to work for FANG, you should probably leet and spend all your evenings and weekends trying to learn an algorithm you will never use. So basically going through IQ tests. It's more or less IQ plus hustle. And you put that together, and that's your Leet-Code engineers, and that's who FANG wants. They don't want pleb devs like me and the 90% of you out there who are pleb devs. So instead of that, I'll be showing you, talking to you about how they might really test you, or they might really interview in these IT companies in Japan. So before you guys out there in Silicon Boys tell me I'm working for peanuts in Japan, I've got the right thing for today's video. Utsumami mix, assorted snacks, and as you can see there are some peanuts in there. Let's get some peanuts for today's video. But here we go. One peanut income gang. Before you watch this, like, subscribe, add me on LinkedIn. Number 4 is check out the Discord in Japan and out of Japan channels. All we do is yap about working IT in Japan and other things like sharing images of gyoza. That's not an innuendo. So yes, this whole Leet-Code thing, it was mostly used in it's mostly used in Silicon Boys, right? So you will get that in Tokyo with these large companies, some of these large Western companies, but you may not get, most cases you don't get that in Japanese companies or bilingual companies. You might get something different. From my own experience, I worked in a venture IT company, and I didn't have a Leet-Code test, but what I did have was a take home. But that take home, right, this was 8 years ago? So we didn't have AI to help us out. We just had to write the homework ourselves and then hope that's enough. And nowadays you have all this AI, so any homework that gets given can be done by AI or maybe assisted. So it's a bit of a cheat now these days. So that means that these companies, I have actually had 2 online code interviews where in real time they'll ask me to make something. One of them I failed. I'll link the video of the failed senior engineer videos I have, senior front end, and I failed about 5 of the projects. I got one of them, I failed 4. That was one of the online real-time coding interviews. Another real-time coding, I was accepted for the job, was just general programming questions. They asked me to make a function that, takes in different languages and pops out different languages, something like this, and it was in real time, of course, all in Japanese for that interview. But so what I'm trying to say now is that less companies are using these take-home homework because everyone's using AI. So one, yes, they might give you homework to take home, and it might be quite complex so that even AI cannot help you because you won't understand the problem itself. Or 2, they might just get you to code real time. I've been working with quite a few companies. Every 6 months I change 1 or 2 companies. So I'm seeing different ways they actually interview the engineers. And the majority of them is mostly discussion based. And that's what I've found out with Japanese IT companies. Remember, I'm only working with small to medium sized companies. I'm not working with whatever FANG company you want to put in there. I'm working with small to medium sized companies, anywhere from 30 to 200 employees. But also remember, just because it's 30 employees doesn't mean it's easier than a 200 employee company. You can have some really highly skilled small size companies where it's 30 people, but they're all high level devs. So I might even say that those mid-level companies might even have worse, or be worse off at interviewing people. I remember one of the companies I was working at, the person who was setting the interview questions or the interview take home, he wasn't really what you would call a skilled engineer. He didn't have so much experience. So what he did is he just found like a copy paste generic questions in Java or something. That is what his responsibility was, to interview possible engineers to come work in the company. But he was just using some templates he found online. So it wasn't, you see what I mean about these like 200-man companies? Sometimes the person who sets up the interview is not the best interviewer. Another thing about these interviews as well, if you're doing Leet-Code or anything like it, but I've noticed that in Japan, if they see a record of you working in a certain company doing a certain type of job, they don't really test you. If you're working at, let's say, cyber agent as a senior engineer for 10 years, I don't think they look at it and go, okay, this guy has been through hard times. They know that what he's been doing. But if you just came off, let's say, a boot camp, or maybe you're 2 years in a smaller company, I understand that they might just test you that way. They might do some Leet-Code or Leet-Code like questions. But as a freelance IT worker in Japan for the past 5, 6 years now, most of the interviews I've done had no coding at all. It was just discussion based. What did you do at this time, and how did you implement it? What kind of issues what kind of issues occurred making that product? How would you do this? How would you make that product? If you had a second go at that product that you made, most of the times I was making things from scratch. So if you had to do it again, what would you change? Which step would you use? These kind of questions are more possible than just giving you some test to check how good you are at coding. And if you're a junior engineer, most of these companies are not looking for you to be the most smartest, cool guy up to date with all the algorithms. They're just checking out what you guys call the vibe check. Does this guy match with our personality and our character and all that? And we're gonna pay him peanuts just to get into the company, but that's fine. That's your first job, so you got to think of it that way. Like most companies in Japan, if they're hiring juniors, they're not expecting you to be the greatest. That's probably with most IT companies around the world, but especially in Japan, that they don't expect you to know all the stuff if you're a junior engineer, even if you did graduate from university with a computer science degree. And just to be upfront with everyone watching, I would fail most of these Leet-Code tests. I have no idea. Like I've tried a few. I've tried a few before, and I've looked at hash tables and all this. And it's great. I think you should know it. You should know the stuff. Okay, like all these algorithms, good. You should know it, but I hardly ever use it at work. And if there comes to a point where I have to write an algorithm, look, I'm a pleb-dev. I'll just use AI to make the algorithm for me. But then again, you might say you wouldn't know when to implement that algorithm. But look, if you're working on like a front-end application, do you really need all these algorithms? I mean, we're using frameworks and libraries. We're using libraries and modules that do it for us. Just give them the input and get the output out. So I haven't really used it. The only time I've ever used something complex to any point was using SVG manipulation for dashboards, and that was quite a highly customized D3 dashboard. But besides that, we're just making tables, lists, and forms. So it's not like we're not really using that stuff. One important part I would like to add to the end of this video is that nomikais are really important. I think this is hard to explain to some people who don't understand the way that Asia works, maybe, or East Asia, or even Vietnam, or even China, maybe to some extent. I'm not sure, but especially in Japan, the nomikai and the drinking with clients, or drinking with possible clients, is probably just as important as you going to an interview. Right? You go to an interview, very good. That's great. You're smart, good man. But if you go to a nomikai, you have a drink at an izakaya with the manager. This is quite important. This is, I would say, the most important part. And I'm not saying that if you're a junior dev out there, you have to start drinking with your boss or anything. That's not what I'm saying. Do not misquote me or anything like that. But especially as a freelance worker, like I'm going into freelance talk now, because I am a freelance IT worker, having connections and gaining trust this way, and just getting into a project with that client trusts you, he gives you another project. I got calls from another client now. They want me back to help with another project. So this type of keeping your clients, and if you're making a new client, keeping those relationships strong, that's, I would say, is more important, because they know someone who's looking for whatever engineer you are, and they'll put in a good word. Oh, Tyrone worked with me. I trust him. He takes ownership. That might be more important than, oh, he can do all Leet-Code really fast. Or he's really smart. Look at how well he Leet-Codes. Because at the end of the day, they're not paying you to Leet-Code. They're paying you to make whatever soy web app you have to make with React or whatever. They're paying you for that. And what I've also seen is that people who are really smart, I've hired some people who are really smart, and then when you go into the company and you work with them, some of them, like they get a sore stomach or something, or they fold, and that's the part where, okay, this is now beyond the interview, is that if you can show them that you don't fold under pressure, that might be more valuable than passing Leet-Codes. If you say, yeah, I did 2 projects at once for 6 months and I delivered, that's more valuable than, oh, look at this algorithm I created. I 10x the speed. No one cares if the header was, okay, 10x is a good speed to be faster at. But okay, the header's 5 times faster when loading. That's great and all, but you fold under pressure. So there's a lot of things out there that interviews cannot understand. Interview tests cannot predict or measure you. And I think these might be important. Or, well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe shut up because I'm a pleb-dev and I only use TypeScript, React, and all these other soy stacks that people make fun of. So anyway, that's it for today. Let me know what you think in the comment. If you come from a different country, is this the same thing for you? Like, it's not just about all these Leet-Codes and how you can one up everyone and get into that fang. So yeah, what do you think? Like, subscribe, add me on LinkedIn and Discord. We all yap about working IT in Japan and whatever anime and all these weeb stuff that we're into. So yep, thanks for today, and I'll see you next time.